Yo, what up, what up, everybody? It is another episode of the Grit and Grind Show brought to you by the In Off the Bench podcast. I'm your host, I'm your boy, I'm the guy steering the ship, Daniel Ball. And today we are talking to the voice of the United Grid League, Cassie Martinez. But before Cassie joins us, got some business to attend to. As always, you know that the holiday season is right around the corner, and nothing better than to get that special someone or to stuff those stockings full of our sponsors, goodies, and gifts. First off, you got Chinook Seedery. Whether you're in the boardroom or on the fields, do your thing. Grab your seeds. They got 8 flavors, mild to wild. I mean, if you're not getting the Chinook seeds, you're missing out. It's baseball season. The spring is right around the corner, so there's no need to go anywhere else for your seeds. Go online, help support our athletes, enter the codes, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Memphis City Designs, get your brands, gear, and logos on everything from shoes to underoos. You can also get your In Off the Bench gear while supplies last. Things are going hot. It is getting cold outside. It's hoodie season. So as you could tell, I got the blue, Memphis Blue In Off the Bench podcast hoodie on. If you like that one, or you're an Ole Miss person, an LSU person, if you're an Oklahoma person, Alabama person, Florida person, you name it. They got the colors for your teams. Go get it quickly because they're flying off the shelves. Relief Chiropractic. Go see my boy, Dr. Vic. He is rejuvenating people and adding years to their lives. I'm telling you, he's got the magic hands. Go see him so you can enter the new year feeling like a new you. And finally, Old Dominick Distillery. Experience 150 years of tradition in the heart of downtown Memphis. From bourbon to vodka, whiskey to gin, Old Dominick's got you covered. Stop in today for a tour or to pick up your favorite bottle. Holiday parties are right around the corner if you hadn't had them already. And you don't need to go empty-handed. Stop in Old Dominick's. Go online to Old Dominick's. Order you a couple bottles. Take it. Be the hit. Be the life of the party. I promise you, you'll have fun. And as always, drink responsibly. If you need an Uber, let me know. I'll call it for you. You can pay for it, but I'll call it for you. Just let me know. And with that, the bills have been paid. The business has been attended to. So we need to get to the biggest interview in podcasting this week. Our friend, the voice, the head commentator for the United Grid League, Cassie Martinez. Cassie, what up, what up? How we doing today?
I'm great, Daniel. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am blessed. It is, a cooler day here in Tampa. So whenever the humidity goes away and the sun, kind of tones itself down a little bit, people start acting kind of crazy. I appreciate it. I'm not that type of person that's going to complain about the heat and then turn around and complain about it being cold. I kind of appreciate the hoodie and sweats weather. So I'm loving it right now, and life is good. But we gotta talk about life with you. Life has got to be good. You are the face of the streams. You are the face and the voice of the United Grid League. You're all over the place. Before we get into how you got to where you're at today, we gotta talk about the beginnings. Where did you grow up? Where's home for you?
I grew up in South Florida. So I was born in Hialeah, Florida, very big Cuban population. My parents are both first generation American, and all my grandparents who are also alive are all Cuban. Very blessed.
So you've been down in South Florida your entire life. Have
Yes.
you experienced life outside of that? And the reason I ask is because I grew up in Memphis and then moved to Fort Lauderdale in South Florida right after college. So it was kind of eye-opening for me. So for you, the reverse, have you been out of South Florida for any extended period of time? And if so, like, what was that like? Was it a culture shock?
I've never lived outside of South Florida before, but I've done a good amount of traveling, like to know what's out there, and I really love it here. I love the weather. It doesn't get too cold. I don't have to shovel snow or anything like that. I wouldn't know what to do with it. Um, and I think the longest that I've spent outside of the state was last month. I went to Vegas for 2 weeks, and that was a blast. So we were like acting like locals there, and that was the best time.
I can imagine that Vegas is one of those places. If you've never been, you could probably do it for an extended amount of time. But I've heard people say, I've been to Vegas a few different times, and like all you need is a few days. And I know you're there for work, so I'm sure that there's a little bit of you gotta zone in and be very professional. And my degenerate friends that talk about going there, they're doing dumb stuff. So it's like, yeah, that's why you only want to spend a couple of days there. But I guess what you're saying is if you go there and you kind of never been there, or you're getting to know a lot of just Las Vegas and the outskirts, and you're away from the strip and away from all the parties, you could probably, you know, appreciate what it has to offer, and kind of, like you said, become a local in some sense.
Yeah, like we were going to the gym every day and just like exploring the local foods and stuff. Honestly, we went to Zion for a few days, which is in Utah. So we actually left the state for a day. We're like, man, I can't wait to go back to Vegas. Like, it's just so much fun there. Like, there's so many things to do.
Yeah. So
Good
what's
for
your takeaway? What's your takeaway from Vegas? What is the one thing that, if people were going, outside of the casinos and the nightlife, like what's the one thing where you're like, man, you should really check this out. It's pretty fascinating.
Um, the escape rooms. My partner and I love escape rooms. So we did a Saw escape room. It had like 10 rooms. And that's like a really nerdy answer, but it was like you were getting chased by like the Saw guy, and it was like terrifying, but it was awesome. It was super cool.
No, I'm good. I'm good with all that. I don't want to even pretend to saw off my leg or be put into the situation where I got the saw dude on the tricycle coming after me. I mean, that is crazy to me.
He's like, you want to play a game?
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect. That's crazy. That's so fun.
He's like, you got two options. One, you can go out that first door. There's darkness and death. Or two, you can saw your leg off. You
No.
choose.
I mean, that's to me is like the ultimate, like if you're a horror fan and you want an escape room, and I like escape rooms, don't get me wrong, but that Saw, I think, gets in my head and lives rent free because somebody had to think up the concepts of that movie, and that bothers me to know that there are people walking this earth that floats around in their head. Like,
Like
no,
you
I'm good.
thought of that. Like that came from your brain.
Right, right. And it's like, holy moly, like, hey, I
And I
get it. I
actually
mean,
hate horror movies. And I was terrified the whole time, but afterward it was great. And he wanted to do another one that it was like it, and it was like 30 rooms. I was like, no, like you took it too far.
30 rooms?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I can't.
are you having to escape all of these rooms, or just you pick
Yes.
one of the rooms?
No. You escape into another room, and then you have to escape that room, and you have to escape the next room. So like you're like constantly escaping.
It would be a real messed up thing if they just was like, you just got to escape. We're going to tell you how long or how many rooms. You just got to keep going. Like
That would be
that
sick.
that would be terrible. Um but obviously, like, we could talk escape rooms all day in Vegas all day, but with you growing up in South Florida, I mean, obviously you're in a gym, you're part of Grid. How do you become, into fitness? Like, was this as a kid growing up, you got into sports, and a byproduct of sports is working out, or was it something you found later in life?
So actually, I did kind of every sport in like elementary school. I was like in karate, I was in cheerleading, I was in like three different types of dance, I was in pee wee baseball. So I did all of those things. My mom tried to put me in everything. And then I just kind of stuck with cheerleading and dance for a little while. And actually, in high school, I was completely sedentary. I was just like focused on school. I was like a debate club nerd. I like to talk a lot. That was like my thing. And I actually met Paul when I was a bartender. Paul's my partner now. and he was running a gym out of his backyard. And I was like, what? Like, you have a gym in your backyard? Like, I don't even go to the gym. Like, that's crazy. Like, I went to the gym, but it was like, I'll go to Planet Fitness and I'll play with the dumbbells, and it was a lot of fun. And then I'll just leave without sweating. So I met Paul 4 years ago now, more than 4 years ago, something like that. And he taught me how to work out. I'm like, man, like, this is working out. Like, that's crazy. Like, I've never done this before. And I actually learned about grid before I learned about CrossFit. So he was like, oh yeah, I work equipment for this sport called grid. Like, do you want to come with me? Like, they're paying people to do equipment. I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm not doing anything else today. So I showed up and I'm like, whoa, like, these people really work out, like, for real. Like, that's crazy. Like, they do more than pick up the little dumbbells and play around with them. And I just like fell in love with it. And I was like, man, I want to do that. And I actually did. Paul's like, okay, like, to do this, you have to train CrossFit. I was like, okay, like, I'll try CrossFit. Like, that's what they do to train for grid. Then, like, if I'm going to play grid, then I have to do CrossFit. I did CrossFit for 2 days. And I was like, I just like the lifting part. So I just stuck there. I just stayed with the lifting.
Hey, I mean, there's, to each their own. And with lifting, I mean, obviously there's some benefits from lifting. I could, on particular days, I could give or take the cardio aspects of CrossFit, the running, the assault bike, the rower, the skier. You can throw all that shit out the window, like for most days.
I didn't even get that far. It's just, you find something that you like and you kind of stick with it. And I think that that's what everybody should do with fitness. Like, just find something that you like, that gets your body moving, that gets you healthy. Just stick with it.
Yeah, I think that's the downfall of society when it comes to, working out and fitness and staying with it, is people think of it as it's this thing that I have to do, not this thing that I get to do. And I think in order to have the mindset that, oh man, I can't wait to work out, I get to work out, you have to enjoy what you do. So like, I was CrossFit level 2 coach for a while. And, once I started working out in my garage, and once I had kids and, life, got a little different, it was like, I don't have to program for the masses. I can just program for myself, and I can do what I want to do. And I think I enjoyed CrossFit now way more than I did when I was competing at a high level with it, because I get to do what I want to do. I don't have to go in there and do things that I can't stand doing. So
exactly, 100%.
You have the philosophy down. Like, if you could bottle that up and sell it to people, like, you would make millions, because that's really the truth. That's really the truth behind, staying with working out, is just find something you like to do. With you, obviously, you talk about Paul and his gym at his house in his backyard. You talk about the lifting aspect, but you said, and this is contrary to what most people have in their experiences, you found grid before you found CrossFit. Most people find it's the opposite. So when you found grid, like, what was going on? Was it the MPGL? Was it the Florida Grid League? Where in the evolution of grid did you find it?
It was the Florida Grid League. It was 2021. And it was actually like here, super local, 4 minutes from my house at a CrossFit box. Yeah. So Paul was running the equipment and he invited me to come with him. And it was just the coolest thing I ever saw.
Nice. So when you talk about running equipment, obviously for most people, they know like grid, and they know the race formats, and they know the amount of races. But when you're running equipment, like, it is a workout. It is like you're taking and staging all the equipment for each of the races, not just one, not just two. There's like 11 of these things that you've got to prepare for.
Yeah.
And There's one called the ladder where you're setting up multiple barbells of hundreds of pounds of weights. And like, I could only imagine, like, you got to have a good team and a good crew. And, shout out to Paul because, if I don't know if he's still doing that today, but he set the tone for what it is because that's a paid position. And not often do you see positions like that get paid. And it's a very, very important part of keeping things on track and keeping the matches running smoothly and on time. So shout out to them. But
definitely. Equipment is really hard, and honestly, that's what like drew me into Grid. Like they take such good care of everybody at every level. So that was really important. I saw that, I was like, wow, like there's a team. Like there's a team itself, Grid League.
Absolutely. So you find Grid when it's Florida Grid League, a very, at this point, I think it was early in the undertaking of Mather and Ruby, where they go, all right, let's make this a regional thing. Let's start on a small scale. And, I think that's one of the ultimate, early demises of the MPGL was it was so grandiose and it was such a new idea. They were at Madison Square Garden shelling out bukus of money for venues when you could just take it back to the box. You could take it back to a gym and, you could take it to a warehouse and lay it out and, get the same thing out of it. And I think you see the evolution, as far as aesthetically, what you see on the streams is vastly different than where it was with Florida Grid League. But I think it's just been small, changes over time and not these big, massive differences that you'll see that could get you in trouble. And probably was what got the MPGL in trouble. And so you evolved from Florida Grid League. Now you're United Grid League. At what point in this evolution now do you become an employee or a part of it? Obviously, you ran equipment that day, but what after that? What got you to where you're at today?
Yeah, so I did equipment for that first match, and obviously I wanted to do it again, and I just like kept on wanting to come back and do more with the equipment side, and Paul kept on doing that. And then come to the next season, I did that for the whole entire season. Everybody was very nice. It was very cool to watch. Next season comes and I want more. I'm like, hey, can I referee? And they were instantly like, yes, of course you can referee. So I was like, oh, cool. Like all I had to do was ask. So I was refereeing and I got great feedback on my refereeing that I'm very loud. That's, the Cuban, I could be very loud. I love to talk. And I just kept on refereeing. I loved it. I loved it. I love being on the grid and like watching it happen, like even closer is so cool. And it's very high stress. Like I found myself yelling at the players, like, you have two more, like, don't leave. Like you have two more, like I was like really into it. I was like on their team whenever I was refereeing. But the season after, I had graduated with my associate's degree and I was starting my bachelor's degree, and I declared my major in journalism. I go to Florida International still. I graduate in the summer. And I was like, I love sports. I love, watching ESPN. I want to make the live stream something that's like, something that people want to watch. Like, can I be part of the live stream? And they were instantly like, yes, like we love like everything that you're doing. Like you love Grid. Like, of course you're welcome to like try out commentating. I was like, whoa, for real? Like, that's awesome. So I started off doing like sideline reporting, and they would kind of cut to me whenever they got a chance. And finally somebody kind of like wasn't able to show up, and I like got in front of the camera and I was helping commentate during the matches, and I got really good feedback. And I was like, wow, like I really love doing this. Like this is so much fun. The next season, which is this current season, I was a full-time commentator. So I was always, at the desk. And yeah, I'm very happy. I love it.
What? I mean, so this is a a life lesson for everybody out there listening. If you want something, the first thing you need to do is ask, because you never know. Like, somebody just might say, "Yeah, sure, go ahead, try it
Yeah,
out."
totally.
And I think that's kind of the good thing that Grid has going for it. It's not like, I think of it in terms of like a startup. It's not really a startup because it has some roots, and
Hmm.
it's doing its thing, but it is a startup in a sense because it's very young in regards to a professional league. And shout out to them for just taking chances on people and just saying, yeah, sure. If you feel like you can add something of value to us and what we do, then try it out. If it doesn't work, then we try it. If it's something we can modify, then we'll change and make it better. Um, but I think knowing that is got to give you some hope and some really positive reflection when it comes to what's in store and the longevity of what the sport could be.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have such a great group of leadership in, the referees, equipment, like all the makings of like putting on the actual show is so, like, we just love the sport because of how we are brought up in it. Like, oh, you want to try this? Of course you can. Like, here you go. Like, I'm trusting you to do this. Like, and just having that trust put into you and like being able to uh have something to show for it, essentially, it just means a lot. So I definitely see this like being a big thing, and like all of these people taking it all the way to the top.
Absolutely. So 2024 season, let's talk about it. As a commentator, how do you root for anybody? Do you root for everybody? Were you wanting any particular team to win, or as a commentator you got to be like, "Oh, I can't give any opinion that way."
So I can have an opinion, because I'm not on an official live stream. I can tell you that I'm not rooting for anybody specifically at any given moment, just because I know everybody on all the teams. And also, Paul is my partner. He owns the Daytona Beach Venom. So um, he's always like, I don't know, like, I can't root for you. Like, just because you're, my partner, I have to, look at the teams and like see who I identify with. I can't say that I identify with any one team, but I definitely did think that the Sharks were going to take it all, like, from the very first match. Like, I saw the Sharks and I was like, oh, that's it. Like, that's 2024 Grid League champion.
Yeah, when you look at the Sharks top to bottom, I mean, they did a good job of going out and signing players that had experience. And
Yeah.
whatever you want to believe, good or bad, or however you want to feel, you can get in your feelings all you want, but they added people to their roster that had experience, but also that didn't have a home. And you hear them say it, in the live streams and then the cutaways and the interviews, that they felt for the first time like they had a home. And like, when you create a culture like that, it's powerful. And something like that can carry you from match one all the way to the end of the season and win you a championship. And you don't necessarily have to have the most talent to do that. The culture is a lot of going out and performing at high levels when your talent isn't as strong as others. But I mean,
Yeah. Like, and that's, I think they had like the best story going into the season as well, like having taken players from different teams and everything. Like, in case you're not familiar, they took players from, I think, every single team except for one, like before the season even started, which, like, in Grid, this far into our journey as a sport, like, is basically unheard of, which was like just super exciting going into it. Like, people were upset, people loved it, and it was just a story. And that's how you get people attached to it. So I was like immediately attached to that story. I was like, yes, like, the Sharks are out for blood. And just the way that they played together was just phenomenal as well. I mean, all the teams did amazing this season. I think like hands down the most competitive season of grid I've ever seen, the most exciting to watch. But it was definitely something.
It's fun when I mean, backtracking to Vegas, obviously the regular season was supposed to culminate there, and hurricanes and other, acts of God had, different feelings towards that. So the league, shout out to the league for being able to come up with a way to make Vegas meaningful and important, but also finding a way to make, prior to the playoffs starting, a way to reset matches and have some stake in the game, so that those last regular season matches meant something. And they did. I was glued to the streams just because I knew that these matches, despite winning or losing, you couldn't lose by too much, and you had to win by more for certain teams.
Yeah.
And it would just set the tone for such a amazing playoff the next day, that it's the competition that you look for. That's what you want in your championship series, is something that people have to earn. And I feel like the end of the regular season on that Saturday, and then the following day, the playoffs, culminating with the Wild winning, I think that just created such a good competition, such a good story, that who couldn't want that? And and as a fan, that's what I strive for. When you say, I don't root for anybody, I want everybody to do well, you couldn't ask for a better event to commentate, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It was the teams that were supposed to be in the playoffs were definitely in the playoffs. It was definitely the most competitive, and the way that they came up with that, I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't dream of that for if I just sat there for hours and hours. And everybody was just on board with it. It just he said, Mather made that announcement, that's the way that the matches were going to go in Vegas, and everybody was immediately yeah, that makes sense, 100%. And I know that people are upset about, maybe it would have turned out different if this, if that. But I think everybody kind of understood on a level, these are the two teams that are in the playoffs. The championships. Those are undisputable, top tier teams playing against each other.
Yeah, and to me, it was not destiny. I mean, a lot of hard work went into that, but it was almost like the Wild came out with so much fire, and it got close, I think, with the Aces. For a minute, they threw a bonus flag on some triple unders, and they ended up winning and cut a significant deficit down. Yeah. But when you look at the final score, and then you look at the final score of the championship, it was they were unstoppable. And yeah. I don't know if they were holding back, some of the season or what happened, but they came out like gangbusters, just on fire. Yeah. Everybody.
It was definitely a match format that's suited to their strengths. Every match has different elements, but it follows the same pattern. But they absolutely demolished. I don't think anybody was expecting that level of just dominance for the championship match.
I was talking to Amanda Fisher of the Wild last week, and she was like, for whatever reason, I don't know, but we just had a chip on our shoulder, and it's kind of what fueled us. And the moment that she started that partner forward with Griffin, she was like I'm setting the tone. That's what her words were. It's she goes, I wanted to set the tone and make a mark and say, this is how we're starting and this is how we're going to end. They did a beautiful job mastering, the partner forward all the way down the grid and just dominating all the way. So yeah. Shout out to them. But obviously the 2024 season's come to a close, and we've added a team in the Houston Bandits. We've ventured outside of Florida for another team. Obviously Atlanta is outside of the state of Florida, but they were Gainesville for a little bit and then moved out there. And now you got the evolution of the first Texas team in Houston. Looking at the future, what does the future hold for you, and what's the future hold, do you think, for Grid?
That's a great question. I had this conversation with Ruby the other day, which she does like all the operations, in case anybody listening doesn't know, for the league. She's amazing. And we were talking about, because I'm graduating in the summer, so that's kind of pending, that's coming up soon. And she was asking, so what happens like when you graduate? Are you going to leave? Are you going to like go do something else? And I was telling her, I was introducing myself the other day. I'm like, yeah, I'm a commentator for a semi-professional sport. They're like, oh, like, so what are you going to do with your degree or whatever? I'm like, I don't know. I just hope my sport blows up. I'm just able to do this forever. I just would love to do something that I love forever. So hopefully we're getting a lot of new deals with things like Lights Out Sports and things like that. But I'm definitely here to stay for the Grid League, and just hoping to broaden the understanding of the sport. I think that's the biggest barrier, of making it more understandable for people to watch and enjoyable. Hopefully it's something that you just like every Wednesday, oh, Grid is on tonight, so I have to like turn on my TV to ESPN so we can watch Grid, something like that. But Grid is going places. I know that for sure, and I'll be there.
That's what's up. That's really what everyone wanted to know, is what's Cassie doing next year? Or is she going to be commentating? Is she going to be on the streams? Because if she's not, there's going to be, people do. Like, I shit you not, people, when I put that video out today, and people were like, man, that's awesome. I can't wait to find out what she's doing next year.
Oh, that's, and I so said, nice.
If I had to guess, she's coming back. She's coming back strong. Funny story. So I reached out to Daytona Venom, and the Instagram account, like it just says Venom, right? You don't know who you're talking to. And so I'm going to be having them on next week to talk about Grid. And funny that you mentioned Paul, and then now it all makes sense to me, like how like when I'm looking through social media, just trying to find, just things and facts, and like I'm looking at pictures and photos, and I see Paul and I see a Venom, and it just, for whatever reason, it didn't click. Yeah, it didn't click until you said it. Now it all makes sense. So I'll be having him on. We're going to talk all things Daytona Venom with him next week. But for you, it seems like the future is very bright. You got a degree coming on the horizon. You have the head commentating job for the Grid League that's blowing up, in my opinion. You're branching out. If you had to guess, if there's going to be another team added before next season, where do you think that team is going to be?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Or where would you want it to be?
I would want it to be somewhere like New York, because I think the sports scene in New York is very fun, and they're very diehard and very like Northern attitude, macho, like don't mess with my Yankees. I love that.
They get very passionate about their teams, their home teams.
Yeah. And I love that, because in South Florida, we don't have too much of that. We're very easy to switch up, or at least they are down here, not me. But
well, if it's anything like Tampa, like you find like there's a lot of people in Tampa that aren't from Florida, myself included. Like you move into Florida and you're like, I've met so many people. It's very rare to meet somebody that was born and raised in Tampa and they still live there.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
in South Florida, we have a lot of like local people, but we also have a lot of people that come from all over as well. But even the locals don't really mess with local sports like that.
Yeah. It's not everybody's cup of tea. You got to have you got to be emotionally mature enough to be a fan of any sports team. And I say that because the highs and lows that you go on, you're probably going to lose more times than you
Yep.
win. And so you got to be able to handle that. If you're going to be a fan of a team and you think, well, I'm a fan of the Patriots or I'm a fan of the Chiefs right now because they are winning everything. Well, at some point they won't. And can you handle that? So
I was a Cowboys fan for years, and I just quit being a Cowboys fan. I couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't strong
why are
enough.
you gonna do that to me? Like we're getting ready to end the episode and you're gonna hurt my feelings. I'm a
Are you a
Cowboys fan for life.
I'm sorry. I got in. Tony Romo was like my idol. I was in love with him. I thought I was gonna marry him, and then they just like changed so much. I couldn't do it anymore. It was, what was it? Like Thanksgiving last year or Christmas Eve last year. I was just like, no, I couldn't do it.
If I was to commentate anything, I think that's the style I would want to bring as a Tony Romo style to the
Oh,
booth.
he's
Like,
amazing.
I feel like he's awesome.
Oh, he's so good. Such a good vibe.
Yeah, like
So
I
fun.
think that's what it is when you're in a booth with another person, that the person that you're with has to like, you got to have some chemistry and you got to be able to bounce back and forth really fluidly.
Totally.
But I think Tony Romo is a guy that you plug in there and you can throw anybody in there and he's going to make them feel good. And like to me, that's the ultimate like compliment, is if like you can work with anybody because you make that person so comfortable that they're like, oh, it's just easy.
That's such a great point. Yeah, he definitely does an amazing job at what he does. So I was super happy to see him like still on TV when he like left after his injury and everything.
I love Tony. What a guy.
Good guy. And his Skechers.
So hey, I'd be Skechers too. You pay me enough, I'll wear just about anything.
He looks good enough.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I had a personal question. What is, during season and off season, what's a typical day for you? What's it look like? Obviously in season, like if you have a match, like what does that look like? What's the day to day?
You mean if I'm going like to a match, like wake up?
You're working, or I mean, you're getting up, you're going, you're showing up on site. You're like, what are you prepping? Like, what are you looking at? Like, are you doing like vocal warm ups? Like, what all is happening?
That's funny. That's fun. I wake up, I do my makeup and my hair. Very important for commentating as a female. So I go to the place.
Look, let me stop you. If you're a male and you're trying to look busted, you don't do it. Don't do it, because I mean you can't sit. So I think here's the big thing, and I tell my co-host this, and I joke, but obviously we're two dudes doing a pod. I go, you can't look busted and I look okay, because then it just makes me look bad, or vice versa. Like your person can't look bad, and it just brings the whole aesthetic down. So
no, 100%. We got to match our level. Byra, my co-host, and I have been rocking it with the outfits this season.
He dresses phenomenally. So do you, but like,
thank you. Yeah, no,
when
but
I look at men's style, like he gets it. He gets it.
Yes, he definitely does. He does an amazing job. Very stylish. Big fan of him and his fashion. What was I asking or answering?
So the day-to-day, when you show up. Yeah.
Yes. So hopefully on the way to the convention center or wherever the event is, I get some kind of a coffee. I get there.
Are you a Starbucks person?
Yes.
Me too.
So good. I love, sugar and all the good tasting stuff, and there's nothing wrong.
I don't even need all that. I just need black cold brew, and
no, you're psychopath.
My life is sweet, and I'll tell anybody this, and I'll die on this hill. Starbucks cold brew is the best cold brew, and you're not going to convince me that anybody has anything better. And I've tried a bunch. And if you're out there and you're listening to this and you think that you know where the best cold brew is, please enlighten me, because I would love not to spend $7 for a coffee, but right now,
Great question.
they've
Sure.
got me in a vice because they know what they got and they charge me for it, and they know that I'm just a dummy and I'll pay for it.
They sure do. And I'm gonna add that extra $10 sandwich too on top of it.
Yeah, that
They're
bacon
fire.
Gouda. That
Oh my
bacon
God,
Gouda.
yes. It's so good. That's my favorite. Fire. So go to the convention center, say hello to everybody. Say hello to my referees, my equipment people. Hopefully make it on time to the referee meeting and like see what the standards are or like what the common mistakes might be so that I'm not lost in case like somebody gets faulted, which is like a no rep in grid in case you don't know. And yeah, talk to whoever my co-host is, make a game plan for what it is, because usually we'll have everything prepared going into it. Like we'll kind of have like the storylines. That's mostly what the work is during the week. Like, okay, what's the story between the Wild and the Sharks? What's the story between the Venom and the Palms? And kind of figure out where the beef is, which is the fun part of
The good stuff.
storytelling. Yeah, I think. And yeah, hit a few vocal warm-ups. I like Chester Cheetah chewed a chunk of cheap cheddar cheese. And I'll just say that 5 times fast. And yeah.
I couldn't do it one time slow. That's 5 times fast.
That's actually like a musical theater singing warm-up. So I'll do it like really low and then I'll do it like really high. And I'm terrible at singing. But I did musical theater camp because I loved it a lot. And they taught me that. And I've always done that ever since.
I mean, clearly it's working because you're on point. You are on point.
You too. You have a great voice.
Oh, thank you. So I don't know. Do you listen to yourself back?
I hate it. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's very strange, right? It's very strange.
It's nails on a chalkboard for me.
It's so bad when we're editing. Like a lot of times we don't have to edit, but sometimes we do. And when we're editing and you have to listen back to like, oh my God, it's so cringeworthy. And it's just like, please make it stop. And like, to me, like I am very like self-conscious. Then when I go out, I'm like, well, if I think I sound like a jabroni, does everyone else think I sound like a jabroni too? And I'm just like, so it almost makes you just not want to talk. So
yeah, totally. For me, it's training out my Miami accent. I'm pretty good at covering it during like the actual commentating thing, I think, but there's still a lot that I need to train. And it is training. You have to train your vocal cords and your reactions to things and things like that, which is something that I'm working on too. But it's a fun process. So I'm just grateful to be part of the ride.
I think commentating would be so much fun, but you have to like be very careful because I could see myself like getting caught up in the action and just watching and not saying anything and just going, oh my God, or getting very amped up and saying explicit things. And not that I'm trying to be derogatory or anything. I'm just pumped up, fired up, So, but yeah, obviously you got a good thing going. You're great at what you do. I was curious to know, obviously, your story, how you got into it. But before you leave me, there's always a thinking question that I propose to everybody. And so this is a hypothetical. This is a question that is meant to make you think a little bit. So I think you'll be good at this. So you come across a book, right? This book, you start reading it and you realize the book is the story of your life. You get to present day in the book. It's probably like 300 pages into the book. You get to present day. You're recording a podcast with me and you realize, well, if you continue to read, you're going to read how your life ends. Do you continue to read this book?
That's a good question. Are there instructions in the book about what happens, like if I continue reading, or like I just don't know?
So a lot of people come on here and ask, well, can I change the ending of the book? Well, do you have the power to change the ending of any book?
Oh, I love that.
You don't. So the ending of your book is your book. And if you
Yeah.
continue to read it, that's exactly how it's going to play out.
I want to say that I'm the person that like would stop reading, but that's not me. I would definitely read it all the way to the end. I'm a control freak. I would think about it twice and I would continue to read.
All right. What if, and I have a feeling the answer might be the same, but what if what if you got to present day and the book only had 3 more pages?
Ah,
Are you too afraid at that moment to go, I don't want to know. If I'm going to die soon, I want to just not see it coming and just however it ends, it ends.
I would read it because I would be skeptical, like that would be the end of the book. I would be like, oh, that's not the end of the book. That's just like, I'm going to read the end of it and it's like the credits. And if I find out how I die, well, live like you were dying. And
I
I would just
mean,
rock
for
it.
sure. Like if you knew there was a couple pages left, like I'd be jumping
Yeah.
out of planes, I would be
Right,
bungee
right, right.
jumping. I'd be doing all kinds of crazy things at that point. I mean, I might even go to Vegas and put everything on red just to see. Who knows?
You would get
Um,
along so well with Paul.
like, I can't wait. Next week, we'll have a chance to sit down and rap a little bit, which will be nice. But Cassie, I appreciate you coming on. I thank you. Obviously, I look forward to another successful 2025 Grid League season. If there's anything that we can do for you along the way, please reach out to us.
I really appreciate it. I had so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. That is Cassie Martinez, the voice of the United Grid League. If you like hearing Cassie's story or you just like hearing us average Joes talk X's and O's, please like and share the podcast on Facebook. Retweet us on X, listen and subscribe wherever you stream your podcast. And as always, comments, feedback, thumbs up, hearts, hugs, love. We'll take it all. Go over to YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe, hit notifications. That way, as soon as I drop this show, you get notified and you can be the first person. Don't you want to be the first person to listen to something? Well, you have your chance now. So go on over, hit that notification, and we'll be back. I got another episode with my boy Jim tonight. We're talking to Derek Curiel, LSU baseball. Tomorrow we got Cade Anderson of LSU baseball, and then on Wednesday night, big one, we're talking to Oklahoma gymnast Danae Fletcher. This has been the In Off the Bench podcast, Grid and Grind show. Strong body, sharp minds, grit and grind all the time. We are out.